Hi again. In this lecture, I'm going to talk about information processing theory, which is a theory related to neuroscience or brain-based learning. This is the common model of information processing. This diagram is taken from Hughes, and there are other information processing models available from the literature. Generally, our brain can process information simultaneously from various sources of the senses, appealing to the human senses, and it is also subject to emotional and also environmental influence in influencing the kind of information or maybe the information to be received by the person. Usually in the brain or in the information processing system, it's involved how the brains work, and normally for our sensory, our brain has this sensory memory, which is a kind of memory that traced the kind of senses presented to the person. And there will be some initial processing based on the senses. Not all the information to be absorbed into the short-term memory or into the next process under the short-term memory through the sensory memory. So the initial processing usually involve short-term memory that the learners required to conduct repetitious learning, and also sometimes certain information is also forgotten. And the person who learned also needs to respond to the information presented to them. At the same time, the brain is also conducting retrieval activities from the another side of the brain, which is the long-term memory, and they retrieve information from the long-term memory to be able to integrate with the short-term memory that they have. And once certain information is apprehended, and the brain will be able to code and also elaborate that piece of the information to the long-term memory and store it in long-term. So this is a generic model in explaining about information processing through our senses, and towards the end, how the information is able to be stored in the long-term memory. According to Dale Shang, that this is another simple model on information processing, in which the processing stage, okay, in the brain, in our brain, involve the types of memory that we have. Okay, in our brain, or particularly in the control and executive processes, okay, in the brain process. So we do have a short-term memory processes that we call it as a executive function. It's actually like a control processes. So we do receive input from our senses, from various senses. Human being we have 5 senses, and there are inputs comes to our sensory register. Okay, a component that our brain can analyze and also receive the sensory information comes to the brain, and it will be integrated with the working memory and some any forms of like response also we can generate through our behavior or actions in dealing with the input, okay, through the environment. So that is during the working memory stage. However, during that time, some information from the long-term memory will be activated if the learners or the person are able to relate the new information to the certain old information or long-term information in their brain, and those information will be activated and also retrieved from long-term and bring it to the working memory to process. And any form of information that has been apprehended and also able to be understood by the learners will be stored to the long term. So these are the process of information processing model, and this is presented and adapted from Shang, the textbook, one of the textbook. Okay, and on another model of information processing, this is very popular among multimedia designers, in which Richard Mayers proposed cognitive theory of multimedia learning. As the development of ICT, there are the development of multimedia technologies where all sorts of media such as text, graphic, audio, visual, and motions, kind of a visual also can be presented to the learners. So that is called multimedia presentations. So according to Mayers, there are two important types of multimedia assets that can be presented to the learners are words or text, okay, in the form of text or words, or another one is picture or in the form of visual, moving pictures, icons. So these are the information can be received by the through our senses, okay, by the learners through the senses. Such as the more common one is ears, and also is eyes of our sense, and we can actually receive the hearing through the hearing senses and also to the sight sense. And with that kind of input, so it will channel in to the working memory that the learners has. Okay, so in the working memory, it was actively, okay, conducting like selections of the media type and the information channel in, and the working memory will do a lot of processes in terms of the selections, and at the same time the information or the brain in the working memory is also conducting a lot of organizations of the new information to organize it and to place it to the existing information that the learner has by integrating some information taking from long-term memory or certain prior knowledge that take from long-term memory, and they will be doing, the integration part of the new information with the prior knowledge or long-term existing information in the working memory. From there, the sense making will be in the process, and anything that the learners is able to make sense of, it will be channeled to the long-term memory to build a more understanding, okay, about certain knowledge. So this is the basic understanding about multimedia learning, which is a very popular theory by Mayers. According to Richard Mayers, in terms of information processing, he says that human memories has two channels for the processing of the information that I mentioned earlier on, which is visual and also which is through auditory, okay, visual or words, or which is another one through auditory. And these are the two main channels that channel in the information to our brains. And of course, human memory, our working memory, sensory memory, we have limitations. So we can't cope with a lot of info that channel in through our senses. So we will filter, okay? We'll filter, and some information will be just forgotten, okay? And learning occurs by conducting active processing, okay, in the memory system, especially in the working memory, by conducting the integration processes, okay, and also retrieving, okay, retrieving some information from the long-term memory to do the integration. So new information and skills must be retrieved from long-term memory to be used in order to process the new information coming in. And if certain sense making can be performed, so the new information integrate with the existing information can form another understanding, okay, of the theories or of the information, and it will be stored in the long-term memory. This is one illustration by Mayers, adapted from Mayers, that he mentioned about multimedia learning, in which the computer is able to present multimedia information delivered through eyes and the ears, and it is stored briefly in visual and auditory sensory memory of this learner. Of course, the learners must pay attention. Without paying attention, the learners did not able to receive the input from the information presented through multimedia. And we all know that a learner has this metacognition, which is the information that is above the cognition of the learners, okay, in which those information are called as meta information or metacognition, which is the learners able to have a bird-eyed understanding about what is the purpose for her learning, what does she plan in terms of these learning episodes, and she also conducts some monitoring on her learning processes. So this activity is called as metacognitive learning. And we understand that for the learners, she has this memory system, short-term memory, working memory, which she has the information coming in through her sensory or registered memory, in which in the form of like visual or maybe words or phone or audio based, and she needs to rehearse sometimes in order to hear it and also repeatedly get the information, so that the information can be stored in her memory, working memory, more deeply. And any form of memory can be later encoded and integrating the new knowledge to the existing knowledge in the long-term memory. Or certain time, she needs to retrieve some information and also process of getting the existing knowledge from the long-term memory. So that process is often called as retrieval. Okay, retrieval from the long-term to the short-term or working memory, retrieve and encode. So these two processes is happening in our memory system. So with that, this diagram is able to explain multimedia learning, and more importantly, the cognitive learning processes that happens during that time. There are other models of processing, information processing model. Okay, so the popular one, of course, is Mayer's, and Broadbent also has one theory of information processing, which is able to be explained through, the appealing of the five senses, okay, of human being that we have. Okay, the normal human being, usually we have these five senses: sight, sound, smell, touch, and also feelings. So it will be presented to our sensory registers. Okay, this is where the visual, the audio, the tactile stimulus is stored just long enough to decide if it should be allowed to process to the next stage of the memory system. And there will be like processes of selection, of filtering of this information through our sensory register, in which this will decide which one of the sensory stimuli should be allowed to go into the short-term memory bank, which is the working memory, okay, in other models. Okay. And in the next stage, the short-term memory bank is able to process certain information, and also the certain stimulus remain here in the short-term memory, and some processes happen until it is able to allow some information to store into the long-term memory bank or dispatch from the memory altogether. So this funnel is quite easy for us to understand how the information processing happens. Okay, and the number, according to Broadbent, the number of stimuli are presented simultaneously. So our brain does have this limitation to absorb all the information. Some will be forgotten. Okay, and majority of the stimuli are therefore filtered out. Only a select few to progress through the brain's memory bank. Hence, in terms of the design of the materials for learning, so sometimes we will present certain highlights in the multimedia presentations, or the words will emphasize a few times on some important points in our multimedia design, okay, presented to the learners. This note is credited to Bates 2019, and all the credits are for them. And the application of this theory, okay, there are many, of course, and usually we present important information only by providing handouts and also write on the boards, okay, only certain important information. Also, in our presentation, we also try to gain attention and using cues, okay, to signal which part is important. Okay, something like the mouse that I pointed to. And we move around the room using the voice reflection. So sometimes in the instructions, we revise prior learning. So we review previous day lesson. And also we have some discussion based on the previously covered content. That is to activate the prior knowledge. Okay. So as an effective instructor, so we will remember to remind learners about the prior knowledge. So this is a good practice, okay, due to the influence of the theories of information processing. And very frequently, we also categorize our information into category so that it is able to make the learners more comprehend in terms of our category, so that they can remember, and also bringing those category or that information to the working memory, and therefore to the long-term memory. And teach in inductive reasoning also. And of course, we have to organize our information, show logical sequence of the concept step by step, and the skills that introduced to the students step by steps also, to organize the information. Go from simple to complex, okay, in terms of the level of information or maybe skills presented to the learners. And elaborate new information, connect new information to something that the learners already know. This is important so that they can relate and remember it well, and look for similarity of the new concept with the existing concept that they already know, and also highlight the differences, okay, between the two different concepts. And usually in the instructions, we can use certain codes to enforce in terms of the memory. For example, by making up silly or very funny sentence through the first letter of acronyms. So we can make full use of the acronyms and also make some fun or silly sentences out of that acronym in order for the learners to memorize the longer ideas about that terms. And also use mental imagery technique, so that we can create, certain infographic and present some relevant image related to that concept, so that the learners are able to remember that imagery, that picture in their memory. Okay, and also there is a way of learning, and we should also encourage learners to repeatedly, okay, revisit some important principles, okay, several times, okay, in order for them to get familiar with the new skills. This is especially when we want to learn new skills in the computer by creating a PowerPoint or some new skills in handling like graphic software, so that we will repeatedly do the practice in order to remember how to do it. And we have items from previous lessons also, okay, in repeated the previous lesson, so that it is also able to remember for the learners, and also schedule periodic reviews, okay, on the history lesson, and always like talk back in terms of the stories, okay. So these are important. And overlearned fundamentals, use daily drill, of course, drill and practice, overlearned, okay, play, some form of play from, constantly like drills in terms of some general knowledge or trivial pursuits. As a summary for this lecture, I have presented, okay, a few models of information processing theory, from generic to some specific information processing theory. However, many of the models are sharing the same notion. Okay, cognitive theory of multimedia learning was explained, especially in the multimedia world. We are able to receive a lot of information from the internet, and so the understanding about how these theories work is important, so that we are able to learn better in the technological and also multimedia learning environments. And of course, the implication of these theories are many, that we can apply many techniques or strategies in our instructions to foster memory, and also the store of the important information in the long-term memory. So that is for today, this lecture, and thank you for following this lecture.